I was only 5 years old when I first kicked a ball across the dusty field behind our house. It was an old, half-deflated thing that barely bounced and had more patches than original leather, but to me, it was magic. It wasn't just a ball, it was a promise, a world beyond our small village, a world where I could be seen, where I could be someone. I remember running barefoot under the sun, chasing it like it was the last dream left in the world. The other kids laughed, played, argued about whose turn it was to be goalkeeper. We didn't have uniforms or real goalposts, just two big rocks on either side of the field. That was enough for us. My shirt would cling to my back, soaked in sweat. My legs would be covered in scratches and dirt, and still, I'd smile because every time I scored, it felt like winning the World Cup. My father watched from a distance, sometimes arms crossed, shaking his head. He didn't get it to him. Football was a distraction, a child's game, he'd say. You'll grow out of this nonsense. But I didn't. If anything, my love for the game grew deeper. At school, I doodled soccer balls and stadiums in my notebooks, while others dreamed of becoming doctors or engineers. I dreamed of stepping onto a pitch wearing my country's jersey. I wanted to make people cheer. I wanted to matter. When I turned 10, something incredible happened. Our village hosted a regional tournament. Scouts from the city came. I was nervous. I wore my cousin's oversized cleats, stuffed with cotton. They flopped around my ankles. But I ran anyway. I ran like the wind. I scored 4 goals in one game. Afterward, a man in a blue jacket approached me. He introduced himself as Coach Malik. He handed me a card and said, "You've got talent, kid. Real talent. Come try out for our academy." I held that card like it was a golden ticket. My heart pounded with hope. I ran home faster than I ever had. I burst into the house, waving the card, telling my parents everything. My mother smiled politely. My father frowned. "What kind of nonsense is this?" he asked. "It's just a game," he added. I tried to explain that it wasn't just a game to me, that this was an opportunity, that real players came from academies like that, but he wasn't listening. He shook his head. He tore the card in half. "You will not waste your life chasing a ball," he said. "You will study, get a degree, earn respect." I remember crying myself to sleep that night, not just because of the card, but because my dreams had been crushed in front of me. I didn't go to the tryout, but I didn't stop playing either. I started sneaking out, waking up before dawn to train, using the dim light from the sky to guide my feet. My best friend Horace helped me. He'd keep watch during school. He'd pass me notes about drills and exercises. We became our own team. We had our own rituals. Before every match, we'd touch our hearts and say, "For the dream." When I was 12, I broke my wrist trying to block a shot. My mother panicked. My father scolded me. "You see? This is what your stupid game does," he shouted. I wore a cast for weeks, but even with one arm, I practiced. I balanced the ball on my foot, juggled with one leg. I couldn't stop. By the time I was 14, I was playing better than ever. Our school team won the district championship. I scored the winning goal. New scouts came, this time from a sports college. They gave me a form to fill. They offered a partial scholarship. I didn't even tell my parents. I knew what they'd say instead. I forged my father's signature. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate. Football was all I had. When the acceptance letter came in the mail, I cried tears of joy. Finally, I thought, finally, my chance. But fate wasn't done testing me. My father found the letter. He stormed into my room, waving it in the air, his face red with anger. "You forged my name," he bellowed. "You lied." I couldn't speak. My throat was dry. He tore the letter into pieces. "You're grounded. No football. No friends. No outside," he ordered. He kept my cleats. He locked them in the storage room for 2 months. I didn't touch a ball. It felt like a part of me was missing, like I was slowly disappearing. Horace tried to visit. My father turned him away. "You're ruining my son," he told him. My mother avoided the subject altogether. She cooked my favorite meals, but wouldn't meet my eyes. I became quiet, withdrawn. My grades improved, but I wasn't happy. I was a ghost with a report card. When I turned 16, my father sat me down again. He said, "Time to be serious. No more childish things. You will become an accountant like your uncle." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I was tired of fighting, tired of hoping. So I enrolled in business school. I wore suits. I learned about taxes and spreadsheets, but my heart wasn't in it. Every lunch break, I'd sneak away to the nearby field. I'd watch kids play. Sometimes I'd kick the ball around when no one was looking. That small joy kept me sane. I graduated with average grades, applied to jobs, got rejected from most, ended up driving a taxi part-time. Just for now, I told myself, until something better comes along. But nothing did. 1 year became 2, then 5, now I'm 28. I drive 12 hours a day, sometimes more. My back aches, my knees crack. I know every shortcut in the city. I can guess people's destinations before they speak sometimes. Passengers talk about their children, their plans, their vacations sometimes. I nod and smile other times. I drift into my own mind. I imagine what could have been, what should have been. I still have my old cleats in the trunk, they're worn, cracked. But I can't throw them away, they're my last connection to that boy who once dreamed. Once I picked up a passenger who looked familiar. It was Horace. He had become a coach. He didn't recognize me at first. I told him my name. His face lit up. Man, I thought you'd be playing in Europe by now, he said. I laughed softly. Life had other plans, I replied. He looked sad, but didn't press. Before he left, he said, "You still have it in you. You always did." His words stayed with me. They echoed in my mind for weeks, but I didn't act on them. The weight of years is hard to shake still. Sometimes I dream in my dreams. I'm running again, scoring again, hearing the crowd chant my name. Then I wake up to engine noise and traffic, to reality. But I haven't given up entirely. I coach part-time now, just a local kids team. They call me Coach Z. I teach them not just how to kick, but how to believe. How to hold on when the world says no. I tell them about dreams, about never giving up, about what happens when you let others decide your path. They listen sometimes. They ask, "Did you ever want to play professionally?" I nod, but I don't tell them everything. Not yet. They're too young for that kind of heartbreak, but I'll keep guiding them because maybe, just maybe, one of them will make it, and if they do, a part of me will too. And to every parent who reads this, I say this from my soul: please don't cut down your child's dream. Every morning I sit behind the wheel and take a deep breath before turning the key. I tell myself it's just another day, just another ride, just another city full of strangers. But deep inside, I know it's more than that. Every ride is a reminder that I am not where I wanted to be. Sometimes I drive past the stadium, the big one with lights that shine even in the afternoon, and I wonder what my life would have looked like had I just made it through that first tryout. Would I be wearing a jersey with my name on it? Would kids ask for my autograph? Would my parents be proud? Would I be proud? I try not to dwell on it too much, but memory has a funny way of creeping in when you least expect it. One day, I picked up a kid wearing a messy jersey. He was about 10, maybe younger. He climbed in with his mother holding a ball tight in his arms. He talked nonstop about his team, how he was the fastest in his group, and how one day he'd play in Spain. His eyes were full of fire, the kind I once had. His mother smiled, but her voice was tired. I could tell she'd had a long day. When they got out, I wished him good luck. He said, "Thank you, sir. One day you'll see me on TV." And just like that, he was gone. But that sentence stayed with me. I kept thinking about that kid, about how someone once told me the same thing, how someone believed in me, and how that belief was buried under years of disappointment. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I drove to the old field, the one I hadn't seen in years. It was smaller than I remembered. The grass had grown uneven, but the rocks we used as goals were still there. I stood in the middle of the field and closed my eyes, and for a moment I was 10 again, barefoot, laughing, alive. The wind picked up, and I swear I could hear echoes of old cheers. That moment made me realize something. I may have lost my chance, but I hadn't lost my love for the game. The next day I asked around and found a local youth center looking for volunteers. They needed someone to help coach their under-12 team. I signed up without hesitation. The kids were wild and loud and sometimes impossible, but they listened when I spoke about the game. They looked at me like I knew something, and maybe I did. I taught them everything I knew: how to pass with purpose, how to shoot with control, how to play not just with their feet, but with their hearts. One boy reminded me of myself. His name was Kareem, fast, determined, always the last to leave the field. I saw his shoes once torn at the soles, held together with tape, but he never complained. He ran like the world depended on it. One day after practice, he came up to me and said, "Coach, why do you care so much? No one else does." I looked at him and said, "Because I used to be you." He didn't understand, but he smiled anyway. That smile meant everything. Weeks turned into months. Coaching those kids became the best part of my day. I rearranged my driving hours so I could be at every practice. Some days I barely made enough for gas, but it didn't matter. Every time one of them scored, every time they shouted my name, it filled a hole inside me I thought would never heal. One afternoon after a match, Kareem's mother approached me. She thanked me for believing in him. She said, "He talks about me nonstop, how he wants to be like me." I almost cried because I didn't want him to be like me. I wanted him to be better, to go farther, to chase that dream and never stop. So I saved up money, bought him new cleats. He didn't know it was me. I left them in his locker with a note, "Keep running." And he did. That season they made it to the Finals they lost, but they played like champions, and for the first time in years I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. One evening my father called out of nowhere. He said he heard I was coaching. I said yes. He paused for a long time, then said I was wrong. I didn't understand before. I thought I was protecting you, but maybe I was just afraid. I didn't know what to say. I'd waited years to hear that, and when I finally did, it hurt more than I thought it would, but it also healed something. We talked for hours. He asked about the kids, about Kareem, about the team. He even came to one of the games, sat quietly on the sidelines, didn't say a word, but he clapped when we scored, and afterward he shook my hand, said he was proud. That was the first time he ever said that, and I'll never forget it, because sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places, not with loud apologies, but with quiet actions. I still drive my taxi, still navigate the same roads, but now I drive with a lighter heart, because I know my journey didn't end in failure. It just took a different path, and every child I coach, every dream I help protect, that's me reclaiming a piece of what I lost. Some nights when the city falls quiet, I sit alone in my parked cab and stare at the sky. I wonder how many other dreams are floating out there waiting to be believed, and I wonder how many kids are whispering their hopes into pillows, afraid no one will ever understand. I think about my younger self, the boy who believed a ball could carry him to the stars, and I think about how close he came to being erased, but somehow even in silence that boy kept running, he kept playing, and now through others he lives again. One Saturday morning we had a training session under heavy clouds. The kids were moody and slow. I was about to cancel practice when I saw Kareem juggling the ball by himself. He was smiling, totally in his own world. It reminded me of that dusty field from years ago. I called everyone in, and we had one of our best sessions yet. They played with joy like the rain couldn't touch them. Afterwards, I bought them all hot cocoa with the last of my tips from the night shift. They cheered, said I was the best coach ever, and maybe for the first time I believed it. Later that week I got a call from a former professional player who ran a foundation for young talent. He said he'd heard about my team through Horace. He wanted to visit. He came the following Sunday, watched a scrimmage, pulled me aside and said, some of these kids have something real, and you clearly do too. Would you consider running a training program for underprivileged youth? I said yes. Without thinking, we started with 10 kids, then 20, then 50. Some came barefoot, some shared jerseys, but they all came. Every single one had fire in their eyes. I trained them like they were world champions, because in my heart they already were. News spread, parents started calling, even local media did a short piece on us. My name started to mean something again, but not as a player, as a builder, a lifter, a believer. One evening after a long day of drills, I sat on the bench and watched the sunset. One of the youngest boys sat beside me. He said, "Coach, why do you smile even when you're tired?" I looked at him and said, "Because this is what happiness feels like." He nodded like he understood, and maybe he did, because joy isn't about trophies or headlines, it's about purpose. About waking up every day knowing your life means something to someone. Sometimes when I drive I see posters of pro players, and I no longer feel bitterness, I feel hope, because maybe someone I trained will be up there one day, and even if not, they'll walk through life with confidence, with passion, with belief in themselves, and that's enough. One night my father invited me to dinner. We sat quietly at first, then he reached into a drawer and pulled out something. It was my old cleats, the ones I thought he threw away. He said, "I kept them all these years. I didn't know why, but now I think I do." He handed them to me, and for the first time in a long time I cried, not out of sadness, but from a strange mix of grief and gratitude, because in that moment I felt seen, felt understood, felt like maybe all wasn't lost, that the path I'd taken, as broken as it once seemed, had led me exactly where I was meant to go. Since then I've opened my own small academy, nothing fancy, just a rented warehouse and a patch of grass, but every corner is filled with heart, with laughter, with dreams. Parents thank me, kids hug me, and every time I hear them say, "Coach," I remember what it was like to have no one say my name with pride. Now I get to say theirs with joy. And if you're a parent reading this, or a guardian, or an uncle, or a teacher, please, I beg you, when a child tells you they have a dream, listen. Don't laugh, don't dismiss it, don't crush it, because dreams are fragile and children carry them like glass. You might think you're protecting them, but sometimes protection feels like rejection, and rejection can echo for a lifetime. Support them, guide them, but don't silence them. Let them fall, let them rise, let them try, because even if they don't make it, they'll know they mattered, they'll know someone believed. And belief, that's what builds greatness, not talent, not money, but belief. So if your child tells you they want to be a footballer or a painter or a writer, say, "Okay, let's try," because in trying there is power, and in support there is magic, and in belief there is everything. Please don't cut down your child's dream.